Good guys, good to see you. You're on half term next week. So actually, as I'm reading this to you, I'm actually in Brighton. Obviously I'm not, obviously I'm at church and in my office. This is pre-recorded for this week. I'm going away for a week's holiday before we're back to it in a few weeks' time, and then before the summer, where I'm away for the first week of the summer, but then pretty much it's non-stop till Christmas. So I'm taking the chance just to get away this week, going to catch up with some friends in Brighton. So this is pre-recorded, so we're not having Zoom this week. I will have told you last week that we're not having Zoom this week, but we are having Zoom next week, because next week is half term and I'm home for half term, but I'll be at church working all week. But Zoom is then on next week. So no Zoom tonight, but Zoom next week, but no video. I hope that makes sense. We'll chat about this video. So if you're sat here now going, I've only got 5 minutes, you can pause me and watch me next week if you want. Anyhow, we are carrying on through here to strengthen, encourage and comfort, page 137 through to page 140. Last week we talked about prophesying being there to glorify Jesus, but it's also there to strengthen, encourage and comfort. And they talk about here about how Paul makes it really, really clear that it's all fine to speak in tongues, but he would rather everyone was able to prophesy, because it would strengthen each other. It would comfort each other. It would encourage each other. And we read here a story that is probably known to us all very well. Here in Damascus is Saul. Saul is a very high up Jew. He's going out killing Christians. That is his job, to go out, round them up. He's got a letter from the geezer in charge to say he can come round and kill the Jews. He's rounding them up and getting rid of them. However, he's killing them, variety of ways. But that's what he's doing. And on the road, he's suddenly had the bright light. God's spoken to him. He's gone to this room on, I think it's called Straight Street. And he's there with scales on his eyes. And he's told a guy called Ananias is going to come and speak to you. Now, Ananias didn't know God had done that. All Ananias heard was God saying, go down Straight Street, knock on this door. Paul, this fella called Saul, I say Paul because of course Saul later becomes Paul, but there was this geezer called Saul there. Go and tell him and baptize him, and tell him that you've come to baptize him. And Ananias is like, God, you're having a giraffe, mate. There's no chance that's going to happen. I've heard about this geezer. He's killing us all. What? And then eventually Ananias is like, well, okay, maybe God knows more about this than I do. So Ananias goes and sees Paul and knocks on the door. And let's be totally honest, if I was Ananias, I don't know if I'd do it. And if I did do it, I'd be unbelievably scared. Here I am going and seeing the bloke who's killing Christians, telling him, I'm a Christian, I follow Jesus. I'd be bricking it. But imagine when Saul opens that door and says, are you Ananias? And he goes, yeah. You're expecting me? Yeah, I am. God told me. Like, for Paul to go, okay, this is really real. Yeah, God's spoken to me and I've gone blind for a few days. I know it's pretty darn real. But then God has spoken to me and told me about this guy coming, oh my days. And then for Ananias to go, the relief, this guy's not going to kill me, but also God was right. This is right. Okay, thank you. And they talk together, and Ananias baptizes him. That would have encouraged them and strengthened them, I'm sure. And then Mike talks about 2004. 2004, Soul in the City. 2003. Was it my first? No, it wasn't. 2005 was my first Soul Survivor. But we talked about doing Soul in the City. I just got married a year before, and we didn't as a church, but we did do Soul Survivor. And actually that summer, it was a great summer. It was my first ever Soul Survivor. I took 3 youth. 2 of them are now married to each other. It was a great time together. It was a really good week. And I remember Roy Crown being there, and Andy Hawthorne. Andy Hawthorne, Mandu fan, sits near Paul Taylor at Old Trafford. But for those of you who know Paul, linked to our church. Mike was there with them, and actually there's this, it's also they have these upper rooms, sort of this, in the complex of where it is, they have rooms for the team. And Mike was there having a meeting, and they'd done Soul in the City. They had like, I don't know, 10,000, maybe more, I don't know, like lots of youth descended on London. And you'd go out and you'd sleep in different church halls and churches. You'd go out in the communities and you'd paint fences, you'd give food, you'd mow lawns, you'd just do good stuff for the community. And then of an evening you'd come together and there was this big like concert and celebration, and they had like Tim Hughes, like old school, Matt Redman, like old school youth worship leaders who are now my age and older. And he talks about Andy and he. He doesn't mean Andy as in Andy Croft. He means Andy Hawthorne, who's a thick Manchester accent, manky fella, and Roy Crown, who does Youth for Christ, good blokes. And they're sat there, and Mike's like, oh, there's this fella I know, he's an old guy, he's a prophet, and they're meeting to talk about mission into the country, how they can sort of mobilise youth again. How Song of the City was brilliant, but how do they keep that going? And Mike's gone, oh, one sec, and has gone and got this other guy and said, come in, can you pray for my two mates here? We did Song of the City together, but can you pray for them? This bloke was like, yeah, I'll pray for them. And he starts praying for them, and then he suddenly stops and he goes, actually, God's telling me that I shouldn't just be praying for these two, I should be including you, Mike, in it. I should be praying for you three guys, and by praying for you three guys, I'm praying for you to build up mission in this town. And in the country, sorry, the doorbell, that was the church doorbell. If it goes again, I'll need to nip down. But I want to pray for you three, because I want you to do church in the country, mission in the country. And they were there going to have a meeting about, do they do it? Well, God's just blown it out the water and gone, no, you're doing it. This guy wouldn't have known this. This would have been news to him. And he was just like, I think God said this. And that encouraged them and strengthens them and builds them up. So prophecy, it's there again, I said it last week, it's not for us, it's for others. And that's real good examples of prophecy, yes, 2,000 years ago, but also a few years ago. And I can talk to you guys about prophecy and things that I've seen happen, and people said things, and it's gone, oh, right, okay. Loads, and I'm not going to go on now because I've done 7 minutes, and you moan if I go on more than 5. So, guys, I will see you next week for the Zoom, and then I'll see you guys in church soon. Looking forward to it. So, stay safe, keep well, God bless. Bye.